don't give in to the cat. Don't,
I'm gonna kill that cat. I'm gonna kill it.
Don't give in. He is plotting your murder, so you have to be
Oh,
you have to be
the
very careful.
first night I came here and I shut my bedroom door, it literally had a little attack session on the door and kept grabbing for the handle like it had an authoritative presence in that room.
Yeah. He wants to murder you for sure. So be careful. I'm not worried about the neighborhood. I'm worried about that cat.
Yes. The
All
cat
right.
is of utmost
This is the
concern.
Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Tech show number 122, recorded on June 13th, 2013. Here at Home Tech, we cover all your favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home, news, reviews, product updates, and conversations, all for the Average Tech Guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in Bellevue, Nebraska, and we post this show each week with world-class show notes out at the AverageGuy.tv. If you have questions, comments, or contributions, you can contact the show via email. Just send me an email, podcast at the AverageGuy.tv. You can find me on Twitter. I'm just at Jay Collison. Or follow the show schedule on Twitter at the Average Guy TV. You can also join us for a live chat during the show. It's actually going on right now. If you head out to the AverageGuy.tv/live, maybe you've joined us on YouTube direct through Google+. If you're doing that, head over to the AverageGuy.tv live. I know some of the guys in chat right now are saying our live stream is struggling a little bit, so YouTube might be the best way to watch it tonight. Anyways, we have that available for you on our live page, AverageGuy.tv/live. Right below the live stream window. The chat is right to the right. You don't need any account with live stream. Just log in with a handle, and you are in good shape. All right, we got a great show for you tonight. We had a little struggle getting started, but we are here and live now. Let me go ahead and introduce our regular host, and then we'll get to the guest here. Of course, coming live to us from Christian. Where are you these days? Where have you gone, and what are you doing?
Well, I am back since the last show. I'm now in Hampton, Virginia. Since moved back down from the Western New York area and back working on center at NASA Langley Research Center, working back with the big data mining analytics project that I've been involved with for the past year, and actually just came back today from a big data analytics conference with the research group at IBM Watson in DC for the federal government section of IBM. So that was really quite a treat.
Very cool.
And back in the area and ready to talk VGo.
Yeah, you've had a busy week. We tried to get you on the podcast last week. Of course, you had just moved and you'd had a full enough schedule. But welcome back. And this is a good night for us because we have Tom Ryden. He's the COO and co-founder of VGo. We've been talking about VGo quite a bit lately. Tom, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. It's great to have you. I'll give listeners a little context. Weeks back, actually back in the fall, we mentioned this in the pre-show, back in the fall, we had mentioned, or Christian had mentioned, that he was using some kind of device at NASA Langley to kind of remote into the facility there. Of course, he's in Buffalo, and the facility's at Langley, and I'd kind of blown it off. I was like, yeah, Christian, whatever, okay, a robot, whatever. And then about 6 weeks ago, he brought it up on the show, and we all kind of dug in a little bit, and kind of for the first time saw this telepresence robot that you guys have built and have deployed in various organizations. And if we look at your site, VGo.com, so VGOCOM.com, all that information is out there. Tom, can you take a few minutes and kind of walk us back a little bit, give us a little history on the company, how you got involved?
Sure. So I'm one of the co-founders. We started the company back in late 2007. I started with two other gentlemen. One was also at iRobot. I was previously at iRobot. And one gentleman was over at Polycom and PictureTel video conferencing. And basically, we got together with the idea of, can we take video conferencing out of the conference room and really make it available anywhere in an organization? So in the past, you have to use video conferencing generally in a conference room. It's scheduled. It's kind of a structured environment. And we wanted to take that experience and put it out anywhere. So in an office, in a school, on a factory floor, and just really make it mobile. So we got together and started to develop the project. We're VC backed, so We went out and raised some venture capital funding to get started, and then we developed the product over about 2 to 3 years. We introduced it about 2 years ago, and it's been doing well.
So when you were first putting this together, I mean, the first versions of this thing, were they kind of cobbled together pieces that, how'd that work?
Yep. Yeah. So I'll tell you, when we first got started, it's a tough concept for people who aren't familiar with it. So you're going to do what? A robot video telepresence? We don't understand. So we had to come up with a prototype. We had to show them what our concept was, and we had to do that very quickly. So we did exactly what you said. We cobbled together off-the-shelf components. With our experience in robots, we could easily grab the parts we needed, and we used a variety of technologies to kind of throw it all together. It looked kind of kludgy, and one of the things that when we did get some money, the first thing we focused on is the look, and people are kind of wondering, why on earth would you do that? But we found out very quickly that it's really important for the robot to have a look and a feel that, if you look at a VGo, you see that it slightly resembles a human, but not really. But it's not this robot, ugly thing coming at you. It really needed to fit in the office and fit in a home and be something that you wouldn't mind having it, be around. And so after we pitched it, the kludgy off-the-shelf thing, we quickly went into let's condense this and make it into a product that looks like it would be something that you could use.
Did you do any kind of, speaking of what it actually looks like, have you guys done any studies to determine what's the most favorable looking or a design that people are comfortable with? Christian had mentioned last week, it doesn't have any arms.
Right.
So did you do a little bit of study to determine what that thing should look like?
We did. I think there's a number of trade-offs you have to do when you build a product like this. One of the ones is looking at cost. And unfortunately, every time you add an actuator, it adds cost. And so arms would be wonderful, but they're going to be expensive. And manipulation is really hard and complex to do. And right now, there is no low-cost manipulation. For what we wanted to accomplish, too, you really didn't need manipulation. We really wanted to have the experience of you replicating yourself in but really around video and audio. So the whole idea is to be able to speak, hear, listen, join in that way, not necessarily be able to do something physically at that location.
And what kind of feedback have you been getting from your customers? I assume you get heavy feedback from them as far as how they're using it. What kind of feedback have you been getting?
So we get a variety of feedback. I think one of the things that surprises most people is when you first introduce the concept or the idea, there's some reluctance, there's some hesitance. Sometimes about coworkers or sometimes around other people in the organization. How's this going to work? Is it somebody spying on me? You get that sense. But what they rapidly realize is that within a couple of days, generally, people just adapt to it and say, yep, there's Jim on the robot, as if you were walked in the door. And very quickly they forget that it's this moving robot. They just think it's Jim coming in through the technology.
Christian, has that been your experience as you've used this thing, throughout the spring, that folks get more used to it the more you use it? Maybe talk a little bit about how you've been using it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started using it back in November. The research center had a proposal in our OCIO directorate that was basically for looking into some of the newer ways that we can get involved with telecommunication and teleworking on center. And because I needed to go back to New York to finish my senior year of high school and continue my duties at NASA, I was essentially teleworking 15 to 20 hours a week. And so when this proposal came through in November, it was really convenient timing because I had just gone back and this proposal had just kind of the issue had arisen because of my teleworking situation. And so in November, we were able to procure a unit, and it really is transformative way of doing telecommuting. You have no idea how much easier it is than sitting on a telecon with the phone like this, and you're falling asleep in your hands, and there's really no interaction. And even when you have audio and video capability in like a conference room type setting, you feel like you're on the outside looking in. You don't feel like you're part of the room. You don't really feel like you're part of the discussion. You feel like you're an observer. And yeah, observers may be able to comment from now and then, but the way I like to think of it is you're not at the round table with all the players in the room. And the VGo really changes that, whether it's at a meeting or at a conference, or whether it's something as simple as me logging in so that I can drive over to my coworker's desk and see what he's actually talking about. And all those things are extremely useful, and made teleworking a lot less miserable because it was far more interactive and far more enjoyable to actually work in that setting. So,
Christian, did you find they would hold things up for you to the camera, that they would put them up to, hey, look at this kind of deal?
Yeah.
With the camera?
I mean, it was like kind of like the crash dummy test week, where the first week or so I was probably like, you wanted to stay 10 feet away from me because I would have rolled over your toes. But I got pretty good with the camera rotation and rotating it so that I would pretty much have my eyes on whatever they were trying to show me before they got to, can you see it now? So that's been a great thing about it, just being able to have that freedom of mobility while using it, and kind of you get to set your own perspective as to what type of angle and view you want to take on.
Tom, what's been the experience in navigation? Let's kind of start at the basic. You got to get this robot kind of around the facility, whatever you're in. What has been the user experience? What kind of things have you learned over the last couple of years about how to make this thing successfully mobile in a hazardous workplace environment?
So there's the robot itself. There's a couple of things we've done to just make it easy to drive. There's sensors on it that give you some feedback if you're going to run into an obstacle. It's pretty lightweight, so even if you run into an obstacle at full speed, you're not going to hurt anything. So the hardest thing to do is get people to just drive it and get comfortable. And sometimes people, we found people are a little reluctant, or they don't want to embarrass themselves in front of coworkers. They don't want to hit a coworker or something. So we say, look, just try driving it around when nobody's there. Get comfortable with it. But once you become comfortable with it, it's pretty easy to drive. Our youngest user is 7 years old. It's a student. So one of our big applications is in schools. And the application there is for children who are generally too ill to go to school. And we're not talking a day. We're talking students who will be out or can never go to school again because of certain illness. Schools will buy them. They'll put them in the classroom, and the robot represents that student. And then they can go from class to class. They can go to recess. They can go to other events just as if they were in school. And that has been extremely successful. But there, it's really getting the kids to do kind of a practice run. A lot of the schools will get it before the school year starts, do an introduction, let the students know what's coming, and then let the student who is using it drive around the school, get comfortable, so that when they're in school with 30 other kids in the classroom, they know how to move around and get to the next class like everybody else.
Do you find the kids get comfortable with the unit pretty quickly, and that for them it does represent the person?
Much more than adults. It's a really rapid adoption for the kids. They instantly bond to it. All the kids in the classroom do. And generally in the classroom, we have more struggles with the teacher saying, what's this technology is going to be disruptive to me in the classroom, than the students. The students get it. They giggle around it for the first day, and that's it. Then it's that student, and they're off and running. So it's an interesting watching people get used to operating around the VGos.
Yeah, that'd be a great application. I hadn't thought of it in that sense, where the kids can't go. And they would, of course, we have a whole generation of kids who grew up with video games. To them, driving around in a virtual 3D environment should be pretty easy.
Right. Yeah, it's much easier. There's no problem for them. And fun. We do. One of the ways we introduce people to the product is we have a number of them in our facility here in New Hampshire, and we let them call in and drive around here. And it's always fun because you'll hear, you'll be sitting in your office and you'll hear kids, and why are kids here? Oh, and you realize students who come in and start driving it around, and they have no fear, and they pick it up, and they're off and running.
Tom, have you guys ever thought about this? Just right off the top of my head here, have you guys thought about stationing these things like at a conference? So like Oracle does a big open world conference in San Francisco every year that sometimes I have a hard time going to. I'd like to be at the conference renting, could I rent, would it be possible for me to rent time on one of those things? It's at the conference and I just move around. I mean, is that something that's possible with the technology that you have?
It is. It's possible with the technology. We've done a couple of conferences where we've had people attend the conference and we've brought our products there, but it's more for promotional and trying to sell the product.
Sure.
We do know of actually one of the Mass High Tech Collaborative is going to look at doing something like that at one of their conferences this fall, putting a number of them in the conference and having people call in.
Yeah, you could almost rent them for, hey, I want to go to this session. Christian was mentioning, Christian, talk a little bit about the environment there at Langley and how that was kind of set up from a physical standpoint. I know it's on a station and it checks in, it goes back to the station at night and charges back up. But talk a little bit about that setup.
Right. So the way the robot is structured, for me, I have it, the dock and the unit itself is kept in my coworker's office. I actually don't keep it in my own office. And so essentially a typical day is I log in. I'm now, in my coworker's office where I'm normally walking down the hall to talk with most of the day anyway. And then so if I've addressed all the things I need to do with my coworkers there, then the typical scenario is either I go back to my dock a couple hours later, or they open the door and they let me loose. And there are many stories of what happens when you let the VGo loose at NASA Langley Research Center. And it's a ton of fun. I mean, normally if I'm going outdoors, it's because I'm either going to a meeting or there's other people, believe it or not, in that one office that I have to work with. And so the structure of my particular office is 2 floors. So there are people on both the second floor and the first floor that I need to and would like to communicate with. And one of the fortunate things about the layout is that there's an elevator, and all the doors at that facility are handicap accessible, so they have the handicap button on the wall even inside the property. So and please don't shudder at hearing this, but there are one of 2 ways to get through the doors at the research center. The first way is to convince one of my coworkers to walk downstairs with me, in which he takes care of the buttons. And the second way is a much more gruff way, in which you position the VGo accordingly and you floor it at the full 5 acceleration and you ram it into the handicap door sign on the wall, and away she goes through the doors. I guarantee you it took at least 2 weeks for me to learn the maneuver so that I could get the VGo through to hit the thing hard enough, then back out, then through the door before the double doors automatically closed back on me. So once I learned that maneuver, I was pretty much a free person. And then, believe it or not, one of the concerns I had is that I would keep losing the connection inside the elevator, but that 4G LTE connection was like steady as clear as day. And we, the Verizon LTE signal, there's like an actual repeater station on the research center because it's a NASA has a federal contract with Verizon, I believe. So it's super. I mean, I remember we actually drove the VGo unit into one of the Verizon conferences taking place on Center just because they were part of the team that made sure it wasn't, it was all kosher with NASA regulation and policy. And so that was really cool. So yeah, that's kind of a typical day. You'd be amazed at some of the reactions that you get going down the hallway. I clearly remember one day having the VGo just sitting outside the CTO's office because I was waiting for him to come back for a meeting. So I was just chilling in the hall and reading stuff on the walls, and people would
reading stuff on the walls with the robot. So you've got to turn towards the wall, and it's almost like you're acting like like somebody would waiting for.
Yeah, like an innocent bystander, right? But I mean, these people, I mean, they just see this technology wonder staring at a wall, and they kind of they get close to it and they start doing one of these. And then what I always like to do to scare the living daylights out of people is I pull up the text app, the text to speech app on the robot, and I type something absolutely bizarre that no robot would say to anyone who works at NASA, and some people just do a double take. Some you just see the mouth kind of drop. Others go, "Huh? Say what?" And it's just, it's really funny, the variety of reactions that you get. I've had some people who were just thoroughly freaked out for the first 2 minutes because they didn't realize there was a person on the robot. I know there was one person who thought that NASA had invented the next artificially intelligent robot beyond all measure, and they were convinced that my voice was this new high-tech robot, and they I think took a mental health day. And then there's
Christian,
also
have they ever put a T-shirt on the robot?
Yes,
Okay.
actually, in honor of the Big Bang Theory, the VGo robot is fashioned with the Bazinga T-shirt as featured on Sheldon's Big Bang Theory robot, and we rotate T-shirts. So if
it does get clean.
Right. So if the VGo is sweating a lot, we want to make sure that the T-shirt's taken care of.
That's awesome. Tom, let me ask you about the text-to-speech feature. Yep. Where do you find that? Christian likes to use it kind of, he has no problem in that environment just using the speaker to, speaker microphone. But where does that function get used the most?
Actually, it's amazing how people use that feature because there are a lot of times when you just want to, you don't want to interrupt a meeting, but or if I'm chatting with somebody else but want to send something, I can do that. I can also cut and paste some articles and things and send it. We've got a limit right now on how many characters, and we're looking at can we expand that. But it's a great way to really have the robot have its own personality beyond yourself. And we spent a lot of time working on the text-to-speech, so if you hear it, it's not a typical, it doesn't sound robotic, which is one of the things we were really trying to avoid. So it's a feminine voice, it's a very nice voice, and actually I'll have to remember to send Christian some of the backdoors into some of the capabilities.
Be careful now. Be careful who you're giving those to.
We'll have to send him some of the codes. But yeah, it's an important aspect because it really, all of the, one of the ways we use that, for instance, is when you call the robot, it will announce who's calling. And that was one of the things we studied back to your earlier question about the human-robot interface. People don't necessarily want to be surprised as much as Christian sneaks up on somebody and surprises them. Generally, they don't want to be surprised. And so to have it announce who's coming in to the robot, people really like that. You can turn it off and turn it on, but if you want to know who's coming, it'll tell you, and that's really nice. And then you can choose to allow them in. You can accept that call, or you can not accept it. And those type of things, the prompts are all done through the text-to-speech, and it's just a nice way to interact with people around the robot.
Have you guys thought about or future roadmap? So say I have a meeting at 9 o'clock, and I'm going to telecommute in for this. Being able to set the robot up to automatically come off the base and make its way into the room and get it itself set up, and then I would just join it. Does that happen now, or is that a future thing?
So that doesn't happen on our robot. That technology is moving along quite rapidly. There are a number of sensors and some processing horsepower that you need on the robot that we chose early on not to put on for cost reasons. Right now, that technology is still pretty expensive. A lot of that has come down in the last few years, and that's primarily through the Prime Sense, through the Xbox Connect. Those type of products are really driving the sensor technology down to a point where it will be more affordable to put it on robots. But you need to have a fair amount of sensing and then also a fair amount of behaviors to properly get around obstacles. So unfortunately, if I was at the docking station and wanted to go to an office, every day is not going to be the same. There'll be different people in the hallway. Somebody might have left a chair or a box out, or somebody, the janitor left a big carton out there. You're going to have to figure out how to get around that. What's the best way to get around that? If you can't get around it, you'll have to notify the person at the other end that you're not going to be able to get to the meeting on time. So there's a lot of things that you have to do to make sure that technology works. And it has to work 100% of the time. So, or pretty close to it, because if you're saying, all right, go to this meeting, and then I'm going to call in at, 1 minute before 9 to be in there, it's got to be there. It can't be stuck somewhere in the corner.
You don't want the robot to, I'm sorry I had to late to the meeting. My robot made me late.
My robot.
Christian, I know you had some questions.
Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to go through, actually one of the neat things that we did was I spoke in front of a collaboration committee for NASA who's looking at ways that we can incorporate different technologies for a variety of things. Everything from your typical teleworking scenario to some of the deaf and disabled people that we have on center that would really benefit from this type of technology. And so some of these questions are passed on from them and have my own spin on them. And kind of as the official precursor, I'm obliged to notify our listeners that any opinions throughout this questioning is solely my own and not of NASA's in any way, shape, or form. But with that disclaimer said, I wanted to kind of talk to you a lot about where the VGo is going, especially now that it's out on the market for a couple of years and the software has come up to version 2, and really kind of the initial concept of what you envisioned is on the market. And so I kind of have some different categories that I want to go through and discuss and see what the current thought process is with your engineers, what the kind of future visions are for future versions of the VGo, especially as we talk how prices are changing and the ability of what hardware can be integrated at an affordable cost is changing as well. Okay. So in the first area, as a real general field, is the driving. And for those who aren't familiar with the VGo driving system, the two ways in which you can drive a VGo are A, with your keyboard, just using your arrow keys. You get your up, down, left, right, and pressing combinations of top and right and top and left will make it go horizontal and all that good stuff. The second way is really something I've never seen in any other device in terms of driving, and that is kind of a click, drag, and shoot method where you set your mouse in the direction. It's a half circle that displays on your screen when you're looking out, and you essentially take your mouse and you drag it in the direction you want to go, and the further you drag your mouse towards the top of that half circle, the faster the unit gets, and the unit steers itself in the direction that your mouse is pointing on the screen, which is really the more interactive approach to driving. And a lot of people have thought about it on my end. I personally would be interested in something like this. One thing that we all think would be really cool, at least among my coworkers at NASA, would be to have some kind of add-in feature where it would be capable of supporting an Xbox-like controller where I could sit at my desk and essentially plug in a Bluetooth or just connect to Bluetooth on my computer, my laptop, and hook up my wireless controller to my Bluetooth and have all those movements sent through the VGo networking system, just like all the other commands are sent through with your keyboard and mouse. So do you think that's something realistic price-wise? Has there been any discussion about those types of add-ins for future VGo implementations? And are there any other additional ways of driving that you guys are considering for a future release?
So great question. When we originally designed it, we really wanted to make sure that you could run on a standard PC or laptop. You didn't need any accessories, and you could just run the robot, because we didn't know what people would have. But it's certainly come up that people want to use a joystick or different ways to drive it. And so we are looking at making more of those a plug-in, so into the app side on the PC side to be able to drive it. We've also done some work with Cerebral Palsy Association, one of them, that is looking at different ways that disabled can drive a robot without using. So can they use gaze? Can they use some other technology? And that's kind of moving along, and I'm excited about that. I think that even beyond the disabled, I think there's going to be some neat technologies there. We're also just staying aware of some of the emerging trends. One of the ones is gesture recognition. Some people have been doing some work on that by using your Wi-Fi signal anywhere in the home. You can do gesture, and you could turn on a TV from another room by using some motions. And can we take that technology to, again, same idea, control a robot? So I think you'll see a lot in terms of the ways that the robot can be controlled coming in the future.
Great. Yep. Yeah, because I know like one of the things that took a little adapting to as well. Do I use the keyboard or do I use the on-screen? And to be honest, I still use a combination of the both. There's certain situations that I find it easier to use the keyboard. For example, when I'm trying to pull up to a conference table, I only use the keyboard because it's quite disastrous when I use the mouse. And when I'm cruising down hallways, it's much quicker to just point and click away. So
yep.
Yeah, for sure. The second area I wanted to take a look into is, and this is kind of pretty much a yes or no question, but do you know what the weather tolerance or durability of the unit is? Because in past encounters with it, we've actually turned it off, put it into a car, driven it to the other building on the facility, and taken it off and then letting it go for fear that rain or the outside would eat the thing alive. And we're just wondering, from your perspective, with the way that the unit is designed, what types of situations would you expect that to be a problem if we wanted to cruise it outside?
Okay. It's designed for an indoor product, so it is not an IP. There's this IP rating system that tells you how waterproof and so forth. It's not designed to be used outdoors. It is primarily an indoor unit. That being said, the plastic is all ABS plastic. It's pretty solid and rugged, as you found out by slamming into the door to open it. But it's not sealed, so in any kind of heavy rain, you're going to get rain to kind of get in, and it can potentially get into the circuit boards. It's designed to flow off, but it is not waterproof. So I wouldn't use it outdoors in any weather. One of the things that we found, that originally it was designed just for Wi-Fi, so you're pretty much limited to where your Wi-Fi signal is. And then we put in the Verizon 4G LTE, and now you can go anywhere. So we had some people cruising around a golf course, which I thought was kind of interesting. They were doing it as a fun thing because the person couldn't go. So
they were testing it.
Again, that's not what it's designed for. And really, the wheels and the caster system are not designed to be out in the environment.
Right. And can you talk a little bit about the relationship that you have with Verizon and how that kind of evolved, and has it made the unit more appealing on the market for customers? And what is the percent? Do you have any statistics on the number of people that use the Verizon versus just their internal Wi-Fi?
So it's been a great relationship with Verizon. I'll tell you, when we got started with that, we were concerned because we're a very small company, we're a startup company. We were concerned that we would get stuck kind of in the Verizon bureaucracy, and we haven't found that at all. They have these innovation centers which are great to work with. The engineers are really they understood what we could do and what we couldn't do. They were very helpful in showing us and guiding us and really explaining the technology and making sure we were up to speed pretty rapidly on it. We've since expanded some of the work we're doing with Verizon, and I think you're going to continue to see that grow. They use the technology both internally and so that's been a great relationship. One of the things that has, as we've evolved with the product, when we started on Wi-Fi in certain locations has challenges with security. Can you get through the firewalls and all that stuff? And it's a lot easier on the 4G network, and so that has really expanded the locations we can go. You guys are lucky enough there at NASA to have a repeater inside. The challenge with 4G is, can we get inside a big building? So there's certain locations where they don't have that equipment, and you struggle once you get inside, the fairly far into the building. You're just going to lose that signal. So you really have to look and make sure that the environment supports 4G, but once it does, people love using it. So we've seen a trend that a lot more of our sales are going out with the Verizon-equipped VGo as opposed to the standard Wi-Fi VGo.
Interesting, yeah. Because that's one of the things that our center looked at when we first acquired the unit was they were originally going to look at whether or not it would be compatible on our wireless network, and what types of, we had a couple network architects taking a look at what security holes that would open up, what it would take to hop from one repeater to another, and
Right.
it very quickly became apparent that the Verizon was totally the way to go,
Yep.
especially because NASA has, the Langley Research Center has a good relationship with them as well. It was a win-win situation there. So, and along the promotional lines with Verizon, this is kind of a oddball question, but I figured I'd ask it. Um, the VGo was recently featured in Iron Man 3, if you're paying close
Yes.
attention. It's clearly been in commercials on TV. Can you just talk a little bit about the kind of marketing strategy and philosophy of your company, and what you guys did to actually, what the process of getting a promotional spotlight in a movie as popular as Iron Man 3 entails, and how much does that actually affect your visibility to consumers?
All right. So first, I want to be clear: we didn't go pursue to be an Iron Man 3. That's not really in our marketing strategy. And if our marketing guy was here, he'd be all upset. Wait a minute.
That was
We,
my idea.
we got invited to be in that, and we were supportive of them. But really, what we're cautious of is to be promoted in ways that don't make sense for the product, right? So for us, it's more important about applications for the product and being shown the uses of the product in whatever the promotion is. So we don't actively pursue those types of promotions. We get asked all the time. We were asked, can we do a little thing on the red carpet and have the robot roll down and stuff like that? And that's really distracts from what we're trying to do. Verizon, on the other hand, that promotion was highlighting their technology, but also showed the VGo in a real life application. It was again a student who got to go on I think the one in their commercial is the student going to an aquarium, and that's absolutely, we have as an example, we have a VGo at Pittsburgh Zoo that happens to be dressed up like a giraffe, and classes can go and visit the zoo from a remote location. And so it really was a takeoff on a real application, and that's what we like when those type of promotions are put together. People like to use technology like VGo because it's different and it attracts attention. So if you're trying to sell a boring product and you can put a VGo in there, it attracts attention. But again, it has to be with an application that makes sense for us. And our primary applications are in education and healthcare. And healthcare really is our largest market. So those are.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about what your experience has been with how doctors have used it to visit patients. What is the typical kind of setup for a VGo-equipped doctor? Does he have kind of a VGo at a couple patient homes, maybe a couple different hospitals that he is a resident at? And how many VGos would you expect to see in a doctor's dashboard? Would it just be one or two, or would you expect to see, maybe 5 or 6? And what type of feedback have you gotten from doctors and people in the medical industry about how that's assisted and facilitated their work?
So we're in a number of hospitals throughout the country, and it's all sorts of different applications. So primarily, it's for doctors to visit patients. That's kind of the overriding or overarching application. But in the way they actually do that is very different. So as an example, one of the pediatric hospitals locally to us, they send the robots home with patients after surgery. And the idea is for the doctors to be able to call in and visit that patient as if they were doing a house call, but they never leave the hospital. It just makes the doctor much more efficient. So in some of those cases, the doctors will have about 5 or so VGos on their buddy list, and they can call in when they choose to, and kind of go through and visit patients very rapidly. The patients will generally have them for the first couple of weeks after surgery, the most critical time. And what the hospitals are trying to do is reduce readmissions. So they really don't want the patient to come back in after the surgery. So if they can catch something early, and schedule a visit rather than have an emergency visit. That's going to save the hospital money. One of the interesting things that we found is, and some of the feedback from the doctors, is that it's a very different experience when you visit a patient through a VGo, and they're in many cases finding it better than a traditional office visit. And people will say, well, that doesn't make any sense. But because of the way doctors do their office visits now, a lot of times they're on a keyboard. So if you go in to visit the doctor, he'll talk to you, and then he'll turn in front of his keyboard and type in data because he's updating his medical record. And then maybe they'll turn back to you. But when a doctor does that visit through a VGo, he's actually looking at you all the time because he's looking at the webcam that's on his computer and he's typing. So people have given the feedbacks to doctors that they feel like they almost have a better meeting with the doctor when it's through a VGo because the doctor's always looking at them. So it's an interesting side effect. We've also heard from doctors that they get more feedback from children when they visit on a robot than when the child comes into the doctor. Sometimes they're intimidated, or sometimes they have to be brought in by their parent. So the parent will kind of control the discussion. But when they go and visit in the home, the child runs up, hey, robot, and they start talking with the doctor, and the doctor gets a lot more information. So they've found that they actually get better information when they use the VGo than when they do a traditional visit.
But that's Tom, let me interrupt you quick. Sorry about that. That's pretty incredible. We're finding, even in industry, we're finding, video is changing the equation when it comes to conferences and meetings. I'm a big advocate for Google Plus. We moved with the podcast. We quickly moved off of live stream or Ustream and moved to these Hangouts because they're so easy to do. Well, maybe not so easy tonight to get you in, but they're very easy to do. And I'm a huge advocate that video just changes the equation on that. And so it's great to hear that you guys are finding that as well in that space. What advantage does the VGo give in a visit like that? That just having them come in on a regular web, computer, a laptop, so to speak, with a webcam. What's the difference there?
Yeah, so that's a big question we get asked a lot. Is why can't I just do this with Skype or whatever your current video technology is? And the difference really is the presence. VGo has a physical presence, and it's generally, if a doctor and I'll tell you, some of the hospitals that we're in, they tried to use some Skype or Skype-like type of approach and had laptops in the home. And it's generally, that laptop's used for a lot of other things, so it's not the doctor. It can be anything. And you then have to call in, get the parent, in the case of a pediatric, or get another family member to carry the laptop around, and then the doctor says, well, tilt the camera this way because I want to see that. As Christian said, with a VGo, you have the opportunity to look at what you want to look at, move where you want to move. And really you don't need anybody on the far end to be there. So it's really much more realistic interaction that you would have with a person, except it's with a robot, as opposed to a laptop.
Okay, great point. Christian?
Okay, so changing focuses a little bit. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. One of the really nice things about, well, one of the cool features anyway, is being able to auto dock. And so rather than sitting here fitzing around with tilting the camera down and trying to navigate your way around, you just get within a certain range of that dock and away you go. You just click your auto dock button and it finds its way there perfectly. Would there be a rationale to develop the technology? One of the interesting ideas and one of the feedbacks that I got from this collaboration committee is they were interested in, well, could I program into the VGo certain offices that the VGo needs to visit and just click different destinations and have it go there? And I basically told them, currently doesn't have that technology, but I was curious because I told them about its sensor capabilities with the auto dock, and I wondered what the possibility of setting up some kind of small dot system or some kind of signal similar to what the dock emits that you could place in the offices that the VGo wants to travel to, and kind of program those into a nice little side menu in the software, and what kind of cost benefit factor would be in it for VGo to do something like that.
So that's again, that's an area the technology is evolving. There is no good, reliable indoor GPS. So for you to be able to navigate or have the robot navigate by itself, it really needs to develop a map, build a map, use a number of sensors to build that map, and that tends to be fairly expensive. But what I think you're seeing is the technology being developed. There's some technology out called North Star, which uses a series of LEDs up on the ceiling to give you an orientation where you are. There's some other companies that are doing some neat stuff in light bulbs or modifying light bulbs, LEDs, to again give a kind of a constellation or a type of a signal so that when you drive, you understand where you are, kind of looking up at the ceiling, and then you can navigate around based on that. One of the feedbacks we had when we started looking at that technology early on was, especially in companies, they didn't want to have to modify their environment. So you mentioned putting dots on things, and they didn't want to have to do that because they didn't want to have to maintain it. So if I put a series of dots, and years ago people did some of this work on automotive forklifts and things like that. There were these reflectors that they would put around the warehouse so that the robotic forklift knew where to go. And the problem is that if somebody knocked one of those off or bent it or something, then it would get all screwed up and would get lost or actually hit something. If you have to modify the environment, it requires a lot to ask somebody to keep that up and maintain that. So you really want to have a technology that requires no modifications within the facility. And so that's what we're looking at. And again, it needs to be low cost for our product because our product is around $6,000.
And that's really affordable. I mean, when you think about it, you're getting a robot that's got, it's got a screen on it and a webcam and LTE and all those things on it. It's not terribly expensive. I think people would think they would be more, more than that to do that for sure. Right.
And we've always been targeting keeping the cost as low as we can because we want to see it deployed widely, and so I think there's other technologies that's significantly more expensive, but we really want to see it in offices, in homes, and all sorts of different locations.
You need to partner with Roomba, right? And you can send the vacuum cleaner out at night to clean the floors and map the obstacles.
Come back and tell us where to go.
Yeah, and then come back and say, here's today's map. These are the areas that are clear. Christian, we're coming up on the hour, and so I want to wrap this up here in the next few minutes. But Christian, what else do you have for us?
You just made me lose my thought. I was going to say something really intelligent.
The Roomba I thought was pretty intelligent.
That was pretty good. My intelligent thought came back. I don't know how intelligent it is. It's just a thought. But so the $6,000 entry point is pretty reasonable for most corporations, businesses, institutions. What would you say in response to VGo making an effort to make it more cost affordable for the home environment? Would there be any interest in making kind of like the light version of the VGo? For example, actually, I could go get it if there was really some overwhelming interest to see it, but behind me is a home build of what the VGo is, and essentially it is the same thing built off of a EEE Atom-powered PC with the screen torn off, and basically that acts as the processor down on the bottom. It has the same type of motorized wheelbase that the VGo does, except it's controlled with an Android phone, and you sign your phone into it and you use it kind of like a remote control. And it has the same webcam and audio technology mounted. Obviously not, I don't think it's the same, similar resolution, but not the same type of panning features that the VGo has by any means. But it is essentially your do-it-yourself at-home VGo. Right. And probably the cost of putting that together, if you know what you're doing, you could do it as cheap as probably maybe $700 or $800 if you want to build a nice frame for it, which is what we have back here. And what do you see as, does that conflict with kind of the vision of what you want VGo to be, or do you think that there is possibilities of opening up some type of market that's more accustomed to the home environment?
I think our long-term vision is certainly we do see this product being used in the home in all sorts of facilities like assisted living and elder care facilities and that type of thing. And certainly for being in those types of environments, you have to have a price point that's lower than we are today. So I can't divulge too much about what is on our roadmap, but we recognize and we have a very good understanding of what our costs are and where our costs can be. And I think you'll see a number of different types of versions of our product out in the future.
And if it's okay, so if it's one thing that you think sets out VGo apart from the other, whether it's teleworking or some type of audio, video, visual experience, what is it that, in your vision and in the vision of the company, makes VGo a worthwhile investment for a corporation more than similar other types of products that would be competitive in this type of market?
For us, it's really the physical presence. It's a combination. If it's a tight integration of all the technology, it's not just a big screen on a stick. It's not just, whatever. It truly is a tightly integrated product that really is that physical presence and gives you that excellent two-way audio-video communication.
And the last question on the list is actually one I should have probably done earlier, but it's here now. So, what inspired the engineering process behind choosing the height of the unit that it is? So, for example, I think it's 4 foot something tall, and you're
Christian, Google cut you off. Hold on. Let's they must have thought you were typing. Ask that question again.
All right. From where?
The four. It's you said it's about.
Okay. Yeah. So the unit's about 4 foot tall, and your average human for the most part is above 5 foot something. So what types of what was the reasoning behind choosing the height that you guys chose?
So that's a great question. Again, we did a lot of work on the height. Believe it or not, we studied that, so we're 48 inches tall. It's a very comfortable height if you're sitting or standing. We chose to have one set height, again, to limit costs in terms of actuators, and also to make it really compact and small. So the taller you make it, you need to have a bigger base and a heavier base so that it doesn't fall over. And so now you're getting a bigger, bulkier product. So we were really conscious of it. Basically, if you look at the base, it's about a foot square in terms of the space that it takes up. It can rotate in its own space, and it's only about 16, 17 pounds. So that contributed. So when we started to factor all of that in, we arrived at the 48-inch height. We had taller, and we had shorter, and we had a variety of different ones. In fact, if you ever come to our office, you'll see a whole array of different prototypes that we played with before we settled on that height.
Very good. Well, Tom, thank you for taking some time. There's a million questions we could ask. This is very fascinating. It's a great interview, and I appreciate you taking the time.
No problem.
It was very appropriate with Christian working on this at Langley, and it's just some great ideas. I mean, you got my head thinking, wow, I would love to put one of these at work. This is, I think, something every corporation that's could have one or two of these. I've got staff all the time that are going to work from home. They get sick, whatever, and you could log in and check one out for a meeting and zip that thing into the meeting and then zip it back. Do you have that kind of usage? Are companies seeing the benefit of having that?
Yeah, and that's a great point. It is a shared technology, so you can set it up kind of like a buddy list, and and whoever is the administrator can choose who can call in when. But basically, yeah, you can share it between a number of employees.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. I'd love to be able to sometime. There's times I travel a lot in both the spring and the fall for some recruiting that I do, and it'd be great to be able to join some of my team meetings while I'm on the road. Just check in with a laptop, zip in, get that done, and so very cool. Well, I appreciate you coming out. We've kept you way longer than we promised, but thanks a bunch, Tom Ryden. He's the COO and co-founder of VGo, and you can find VGo information on VGo at VGO.com, VGO.com, and some good stuff out there. And Tom, anything else you want to pimp before you leave?
No, just thanks for having me. Also, I appreciate it, and appreciate the interest in some of your
Yeah,
listeners.
very good, very good. Well, maybe we can have you back on in 6 months or whatever when you guys have some new products or any changes coming on. We'd love to interview you again. The tech, like I said, the community around our podcast has gotten real interested in this, so I appreciate you taking the time to come on.
All right.
If you want to go ahead and hang up, that'll be great. We're going to continue on a little bit, but thanks for staying late for us.
But before he runs away, though,
Yeah.
I have to ask if you could email me or get me a copy of the text-to-speech codes, because I would love to run those tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Christian, I will put the two of you together in an email here, but before the end of the night, so we'll get that taken care of. So, thanks, Tom. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Yep,
Bye-bye. All right, very good. That's some cool stuff.
Yeah, pretty dynamite.
Yeah.
Like I said, it made teleworking a lot less miserable.
Yeah, no, I bet it did. I think in one of the areas that I hadn't really thought about before this interview is this whole idea of sharing this thing among workers. So, because when you're telecommuting, you probably found this, you don't need it all day sometimes.
Right,
Sometimes you do, right?
Yeah,
but there's some key meetings that you need to be in or whatever. And so, this device, I mean, if you think about it, $6,000 over the course of a year times, the 275 days or whatever, those 280 days of work that there are, that's available 24/7. You could, if you need to go in on the weekends or whatever, it would just work. You divide that out among your staff and you think about commuting costs or lost productivity due to just not being there when you need to be. That's not terribly expensive, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, no. And like I said, clearly it wasn't too expensive for NASA to reach out and purchase it, and considering NASA's current state of the budget, they clearly found it a worthwhile investment over all the other things that are on the docket for what to invest in. So
yeah, now these guys seem like it's going on. Well, like I said, I have Tom's email, and at the end of the night here, I got a thank you that I'll copy you on, and I think there's some more in this. I think this could be something we could cover a lot of here in the future for sure.
Yeah.
Christian, talk a little bit about your conference today. You got a chance to take the train into New York, right? New York?
No. Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And just give us a little breakdown on how the day went.
Yeah, really fantastic. I hitched the ride on the Amtrak yesterday evening, and made my way up to Maryland, where I stayed overnight, and then took the Metro line into DC in the morning. And really, per usual, IBM puts on a fantastic display, and just like since their company founded, they treat all of their clientele like gold. So the actual location of the event is in the Hamilton, which is on 14th Street in right in DC. Probably it's like literally within one block of the White House and Congress and Pennsylvania Avenue, and just the layout of the room, for goodness sakes, just shows you how high tech and on top of the world of technology this company is. The seminar dealt mostly with IBM Federal, so they have a whole group now that is just dedicated to federal clientele, right? And I mean, you come into the second floor executive suite that they have set up, and it's just fantastic. I mean, it is clean and precise. It is technically savvy and trendy. There was a real large turnout crowd from everything from the Department of Justice to Veteran Affairs. I mean, really the whole gamut of civilian government agencies was represented, and per usual, all IBMers dressed up in their suits, except for the one that they pulled out of the basement, who was in his jeans, who they hauled out by his ears from the research lab and said, "You have to talk something technical about this Watson stuff." But the overview of the seminar was really how is IBM Watson being used, what commercialized products they are using from Watson, and what their future plans are. and real crisp entrance per usual. Of course, with any company, they're in it to make money. But in doing that and in saying that, I don't mean that in a negative way at all. In fact, they kind of made it very clear at the beginning that they don't have this entire federal section of IBM because they think there's some great money making to be had. Obviously, IBM makes the majority of its profits in the private sector, but they see a real invested interest and value in having strong relationship with our government and trying to progress some of the technology and some of the major problems in our government that they see can be answered with IBM solutions. And really, for the first time, they have just come out with a suite of evolution from Watson that is they're trying to gear towards government, and in particular to NASA Langley Research Center. One of the things that we immediately took interest in is the new announcement of the research advisor that has come out from IBM Watson, and this is a new beta product that is they're getting a small clientele list obviously to start testing. The research advisor is really the first clear indication that we've seen that there's a product directly applied to the types of things. I mean, hello, NASA Langley Research Center, it has the word research in it. They have really kind of pushed Watson into being more than just the thing that was on Jeopardy, and has really transformed a lot of both government and private sector. And so they had several people talk. They actually had 3 guest presenters and then the person who ran the event. And all throughout really learning about the technology, kind of seeing where it's being used the most. And then one of the people actually did a really nice job of laying out where the roadmap is. So Watson is kind of seen, the Watson-based technologies that we currently see have the advantage of what we would call a static cognitive system, which means it has the abilities of memory, learning, and judgment. That's what Watson's good at right now. By 2015, they're foreseeing that static cognitive system will start transforming into a dynamic cognitive system where you also have perception included in the capabilities of analytics and big data. And by 2025, they're thinking that model is going to change from a dynamic cognitive system to an autonomous cognitive system where not only do you have memory, learning, judgment, and perception, but you also have multimodal and reasoning capabilities. And it was really interesting to see how they charted it back from just the days of the keyword search to this kind of new evolution in cognitive search, and how it can be useful to government. So that really clean presentation, top-notch speakers for the most part, and a ton of content. I mean, we really benefited from being there. We currently use IBM Content Analytics, which is one of IBM's enterprise search solutions that is a Watson-based technology that really highlights and takes advantage of the statistical algorithms behind natural language processing and making sense of the noise within unstructured textual data. And so that's the product we're currently with, but we really we see a potential value in what this research advisor could mean for government in general. IBM's also really taking a deep approach into making Watson more than just, and again, I mentioned this earlier, but the research advisor is just one of the products that they announced. They also announced something called the engagement advisor to try and draw in the consumer industry, the average guy, right? Right now, one of the biggest successes of the Watson technology is the medical industry and the relationship that they have with WellPoint. And WellPoint is the company behind Blue Cross Blue Shield, which serves about 1 in 9 people's health insurance in the U.S. And they really have done tremendous work with coming up with a patient care oncology and a patient care insights software designed specifically for the medical industry that is changing the way patients are treated by doctors, and really they have shown trends. They showed really trendings as to where the current technology was when Watson was first created in terms of being able to answer questions accurately, and it was like, abysmally below the standard line of anything a human could do. And the current version, as of the 0.8 version, which is what they ended up running when the Jeopardy show hit, has really reached that top level where Watson is all about a confidence level, and when it gets its top 3 answers, it's building this confidence index and setting a threshold. And of the 60% of the time where it had reached a good confidence level, 95% of the time it was spot on. And so really that technology has become huge in the medical industry because researchers and doctors rather, on average read about 4 hours worth of medical journals per week, which is hardly enough to keep up with the constant dynamic evolutionary changes in the latest treatments, and it's changing all the time. And the difference, and the thing that Watson can do is read all those reports and have all that knowledge in its store. So they have now applications for the iPad and for mobile devices that kind of connect to the Watson WellPoint system for patient care insights. And the whole idea is that it doesn't replace the doctor. It helps the doctor do his or her job better. And they can sit with their iPad and pull up a patient's medical record and run through the system, the current diagnosis, and what the current problem seems to be. And like I said, Watson comes back with the top 3 treatments it thinks would be effective. It gives a confidence rating to each of those treatments, and it really just is remarkable to see where they're going with that. And so IBM's approach is they're not trying to build commercial products that answer the whole gauntlet of stuff out there. They're trying to focus on the biggest cases, the biggest problems that can evolve and progress world technology and evolve society. So the medical industry is huge for them. This whole idea of engagement in marketing is a whole nother area for them. This research advisor is a whole nother area. They also have something called a case advisor, which I believe is part of the medical system that looks at things on a case-by-case basis and kind of builds profiles. But really, all the technology that's coming out of the Watson program is really remarkable because, at least in the computer science industry, cybersecurity and data mining and big data are the 2 fastest growing rapid trends in computer science. Cybersecurity is growing because of the greater urgency of it, especially when we start talking about the evolution in cyber warfare, and big data and data mining because it is the newest and coolest thing for computer science. And just to give you an example, in the last year, every year now, we are generating the amount of data in the world that we had from the time the world started to 2003. So all of the world's data from the beginning of time to 2003 is being created. That size of data is being created every year now since 2010, and we're up to, I think, 6,500. I believe it's zettabytes they're now calculating it in. 65. I haven't even done the math of how many terabytes 6,500 zettabytes is, but or exabytes is the term. 6,500 exabytes is where we currently are in 2013, and by 2015 we're projected to be well over 9,000 exabytes. So if anyone wants to use that cute little Google calculator that converts megabytes to gigabytes for you, go ahead and put in 6,500 exabytes, EXABYTES, and see what the heck it tells you, because my goodness, it's got to be something special. And really, goodness, just the implications of everything. One of the big things that one of the IBM superstars, as we like to call it, Dr. David McQueenie, is really well known in the computer science industry, and he was one of the speakers, and he talked about the evolution of this kind of what the current 2013 outlook is and how these systems are being built. And in 2013, we're right in the era of mobile, we're in the era of cloud, we're in the era of social, and we're in the era of analytics. And those four components is what's starting to drive this huge big data situation. And his vision is we want computing systems to interact with us and not the other way around. So the paradigm is shifting, whereas we used to try and interact with computers, and now we want these computers to start, interacting on the opposite side of the spectrum. And they went through the history of IBM as a company and kind of traced everything back. So we start in the tabulating systems era, where we're just using adding machines and tabular methods of processing and doing mathematical data. And then this big era from probably, I want to say, I think the right era is 1970s to late 90s, and it might be earlier, but the second era is called the programming systems era, where we're writing code for everything to make systems do what we need to build systems. And now we're coming into the cognitive systems era, where it's not all just about writing the code, and this is a real big revolution when you start to kind of get it in your head and it sinks in, but we're using the programmable systems era to and hooking big data on as a module to the programming systems era, which is driving this entire ideologue behind cognitive systems. So we can't just abandon the programmable systems era, because it's always going to be a part of this new field. But now that we have, for the first time in the last several years of the computer science industry, we have access to big data. And when we're combining that with our powers in the programmable era, that's what's really going to shape what we see in static cognitive systems moving to dynamic and autonomous. And really fascinating. One of the cool things you can do is go on to IBM does a top 100 innovations in history, and that will take you, you can just surf on the IBM website and read all the history you want. I'm kind of becoming an IBM history buff as I get into this stuff. Really,
you're going to rival Paul Byrne. He says he's starting to pull out his books, and he's getting a little intimidated.
Yeah, it really is just a really cool culture. I think they're doing a lot of great stuff in the industry. I'm happy to see that they're trying to fix some of the big problems our government faces, especially in efficiency. And one of the biggest things that they commented about government was that government is now fast-paced, and this fast-paced government style has really been prevalent in the last couple of years. And fast-paced government needs fast-paced analytics and fast-paced understanding, and that's really kind of where they drew the seminar. And back to the whole hospitality thing, what other seminars do you know to that you can walk away with a USB flash drive that is shaped like their Power 7 servers that they used for Watson, that says IBM and Watson all in the same thing? and zips out like a solid state disk. I mean, come on now.
Well, that was worth the price of admission right there.
Absolutely. I mean, not to include the Memorial Watson IBM.
Oh yeah,
and
you got to get the gadgets. And
all the gifts and goodies, but really a treat to be there. Fantastic to see that IBM is constantly evolving, and they had an open panel seminar where we just got to throw questions at some of the people behind Watson and Watson in government for like an hour. And wow, some of the discussion was really intriguing. But what I took away from it as a generalization is that IBM isn't set into this kind of one mindset or way of thinking about the Watson technologies. They're playing it by ear and seeing what the industry needs at present and trying to shape that for what the future outlook is going to be. And yeah, huge implications, private sector. Yeah, but an institution like a research center at NASA or the Department of Justice, all of these departments have analytical needs, and all of these government agencies are generating large amounts of data. So really fantastic to see all of that. It was great to go up there and get a chance to kind of get a feel for everything. And as always, I talk about all of these things with great enthusiasm about how it applies to NASA, but always these opinions are of my own, and always appreciative to the folks at both NASA and for the time at IBM today, because like I said, across the aisle, it wasn't just NASA that benefited from this seminar. I think there's a lot of other agencies that are now looking into this technology and saying, yeah, we need to start rolling this stuff out into our plan. So it, fantastic day all around, and thumbs up to IBM.
Good for them. I'll have to contact my local rep here. I've got a really good relationship with the local IBM contact here in Omaha, and so I have to catch her and say, hey, good work, and it's great to hear from you on that. On that note, we'll begin the descent for the podcast. Christian, I'm going to put you on alert right in the post show. I want to see this robot that you got. So that's going to be the post show. Christian's going to bust out the robot. Again, if you're not at the live broadcast and you stay for the post show, I don't put any of that in any kind of recorded content. It's not available. You have to watch it live. So don't forget, join us live Thursday nights as Christian drops his flash drive. Join us live Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. We got some good stuff coming up here in the next couple weeks. John Zadler next week. No home server show on Wednesday night. We're moving it to Thursday. So next Thursday, which I think is the 20th, let's say June 20th, June 20th, 2013, we'll have John Zadler on. We're going to talk home server stuff. He always brings us back on center with home server. And so if you're a home server show listener and you're wondering where we went on Wednesday, join us on Thursday night out here. Just moves an hour later, 8 o'clock Central, 9 Eastern, and we'll do that next week. And then we have actually in Windows, we're going to start talking Windows 8.1. So got a couple series shows lined up for that 2 weeks, and we got the BYOB guys back. We're going to cover what we think of Windows 8.1. We are not going to rehash Windows 8, guys. I'm just telling you, we're not going to moan and bitch and whine about all the problems in Windows 8. This is looking forward on 8.1, and so that's the next series we're covering, 2 or 3 or 4 podcasts around Windows 8.1.
Start button's back.
Yeah, the start. Yeah, among a bunch of other small little things, the start button and boot to desktop are on their way back, but there's a lot of back-end stuff that looked pretty cool. So
I mean, but goodness, if you think about it, now that I think about it, who the heck gets rid of their own company's logo from their OS? I mean, I don't care if you want to go to the whole start menu versus Metro argument. Who the heck gets rid of the logo?
Christian, we're not going to bitch. Remember, I just said that. We're not going to complain about it. We're moving on. It's Windows 8.1. It comes out June 26th, I think is the day. And the next, that's on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Let me look at the calendar here. That's on a Wednesday. We'll do the very first look podcast on that Thursday night and look at 8.1.
Is that a free upgrade, or is that a whole?
It will be a free upgrade.
Yes.
No, it will be free for everyone on Windows 8. So good stuff. That's coming up as well. You'll want to join us. So you got the next 3 or 4 weeks scheduled out for you on home tech. We got some good stuff. Of course, we'll always have Christian with coming in from his assignment there at NASA Langley. And we got some good stuff coming forward for you. All right. Well, with that, I'll remind you, if you, and most of you have probably found a great way to listen to the podcast, but I'll just remind you, if you haven't found a way, or if you want to do it, head out to Stitcher, Stitcher.com, available both Android and iPhone platforms. Great way to listen to the podcast. It is audio only, but a great way to listen to the podcast if you're on your mower, or if you're working on the car, or if you're taking a walk or taking a jog and you like to do that. Stitcher works great for that. They actually have some phone apps or some car apps coming out, and some future cars as well. So something you can get the podcast on each and every week. Stitcher.com, of course, just search Home Tech. If you just put that in, Home Tech, it'll be the first thing that pops up. I test that every week, and it still works. We say it's education for your ears. And, of course, you can subscribe to the show on YouTube, youtube.com/theaverageGuyTV. And actually, if you subscribe to us, that'd be great. I'm in a little bit of a competition with Mike Howard. I was ahead of him last week with JPEG to RAW. He's now ahead of me now. I can't let that happen, guys. First of all, he's not out here tonight. But second of all, I can't let Howard beat me on this thing. So head out to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/theaverageGuyTV. Really nothing. I don't spam you. You get very few notifications in your Gmail account, and if you don't like that, you can shut me off. But I got to beat Howard, man. So head out there, get subscribed, and, of course, you can catch us each week live, 8 p.m. Central, over at theaverageguy.tv. Don't forget, we have groups on Facebook, both on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/theaverageguy. And if you join that group and we hit 200, I said 250, I'm going to back it up to 200. When we hit 200 people, we're going to give away 100 Amazon bucks. So don't miss it. We're getting close. Don't miss it. Get out there and join the group. Again, it's a great group, a lot of great conversation going on, and it's over at The Average Guy. Facebook.com/group/TheAverageGuy, and we have a Google Plus page as well, although nobody's really out there on that page, so you just search for it if you want to find it. And then don't forget, we've had a great run on Amazon. We fund all of our giveaways with the Amazon affiliate link. Head out to theaverageguy.tv/Amazon before you buy at Amazon. It'll pass you right on through into Amazon. We make a few cents off your purchases, depending on what you buy, and actually you guys have been using that very, very well lately. And we've got some great giveaways coming up for that, and that kind of funds the fund of stuff to give away. And so theaverageguy.tv/Amazon, or you can go to amazon.theaverageguy.tv. I don't want to confuse you, but either one of those work. Give that a shot, and, of course, we make a little bit off that, and we give it away as well. All right, that'll do it for the week. Christian, thanks for making the effort to come in. I want to thank Tom for coming out as well from VGo, and we'll stay around for the post-show, but this will wrap up the recorded version of it. I hope everybody has a great week. I've got a quick story in the post-show. Again, you got to be here to get the post-show, so come out and join us live Thursday nights. Everybody have a great night. Thanks for coming out.
Take care, guys.